Howdy, folks. This is Tony here, giving you my post-mortem on the disappointing election results which took place in Virginia last night that saw Republicans lose the House of Delegates and fail to gain control of the Senate, which means that now Virginia's government is controlled by a Republican governor, but a state legislature that is entirely Democratic and is not willing to work with him. That's the impression that we're going to basically have gridlock and not be able to advance conservative America First agenda in this state. Now, fortunately, my county chose to vote Republican. We rejected both Democrats that were on the ballot. However, the overall picture is very disappointing, and I believe that you basically have a few key causes as to why last night was so disappointing for conservative minded Americans such as myself. First of all, we have to look at the elephant in the room. We were vastly outspent by Democrats. If you look at how much money was poured into the election itself, Democrats massively outspent us. And I do believe that a lot of that is Ronna McDaniel's fault. I get that there's probably a desire to conserve resources and invest them in 2024. However, I've started to realize that there's probably a scheme taking place with these political donations. I'm becoming very pessimistic about this. I wonder if it's more lucrative for Republicans to lose than it is to win. Because think about it, we failed to regain both chambers of the federal legislature last year. Not only this, but there were losses that took place in 2020. And when you look at it, you always see a loss take place, and then afterwards, you see an email or a flyer sent out, donate, donate so we can take back our state or so we can take back our government, donate so we can fight and take America back or whatever. And I am not directly implicating any politician in my accusation. I think it's the people that fundraise in these politicians' names that would rather watch your candidate lose. So then that puts you in a state of panic as to whether or not the government is going to oppress you. And then from there, that makes you empty your wallet into their coffers to enrich them. That is what I actually think is going on here. That convinces me that there may be some form of grift because how do you explain Ronna McDaniel getting reelected as RNC chair when she has cost us, what, an historically high amount of governorships? And other statewide and federal races across the country. We've lost the House of Representatives. We've lost several governorships under her direction. What, we failed to retake Virginia last night when that should have been a blowout. If the messaging and the campaign were run more efficiently, that should have been a blowout. Especially with all of this Israel versus Hamas and them trying to trans the kids and all of these things. Those issues, they should have obliterated the Democrats. But I believe that we have the wrong RNC chair. And if she knew what was good for the party, she would step down immediately and appoint someone who's actually going to deliver some W's to the Republican Party instead of just handing it L's and then asking for money after the fact. I personally believe Ronna McDaniel and her ilk are a huge grift, and it is causing there to be a disengagement between the voter base and the politicians themselves. That's the first issue. The second issue that I see with the GOP is messaging. The messaging is crap. Let's just be honest about it. Whenever Democrats go out there and say their message, no matter how crazy or poorly thought out, it is bold. It is definitive. So much so that they end up getting censured in Congress, like Rashida Tlaib. I am not saying that I agree with anything that woman believes, but look at her passion. You don't think that's going to inspire young people? Even though it's going to inspire them to be wrong, it's inspirational. This Mitch McConnell, let's calmly look at it. Let's see if we can talk to the old people and get them to be happy again. That is not effective messaging. You have to go out there with conviction and passion and be firm in what you believe. Take the abortion issue, for example. We have had a couple of decades of angry Karens screaming the most unscientific, immoral, nonsensical things to young people. But what did you have? You had the Ohio abortion pass soundly. You had pro-abort candidates stomp pro-life candidates or partially pro-life candidates in Virginia. You're seeing the abortion initiative gain steam because even though it's poorly thought out, it's very passionate. And where is the passion in the Republican Party? And don't get me wrong, Trump's plenty passionate, but Trump rallies are not enough to save America. You have to have the entire apparatus of the Republican Party passionate about America and passionate about winning voters. Now, let's talk about the voters because that's the next issue. So, we've already discussed Ron McDaniel's the first problem. The second problem is the crap messaging that's not passionate enough, that's not inspirational in the Republican Party. But now let's go over to the actual voters themselves. And sad to say, there's extreme moral decay in our country. If you look at the direction how children are being treated, think about the world from the eyes of a child. If that child is lucky enough for his or her mother not to decide to get rid of him or her, then that child is going to go to public school likely, where they're going to be introduced to things that could scar them for life and lead them to take life altering surgeries that will lead them down a path of mental illness and possibly suicide. So, from the perspective of a child growing up in America, the world sucks. And that's the reality that children are being brainwashed in. That's the reality children are being indoctrinated in. And that moral decay is something that has to be fixed at home and at church. That is not something the government can fix. That is that intangible layer that is affecting. Because what I saw in the polls last night is depravity won, and depravity won big time. And it sucks that Republicans, many of which I'm not talking about the average Republican voter. I am talking about the elite of the party do not have the courage and boldness to call it out for what it is. Instead, oh well, let's compromise, let's be bipartisan. That bipartisanship is quelling the passions of those who wish to see injustice stopped. And that is a big thing. Now, going deeper into the issue of voters, who are the Republicans always trying to appeal to in their ads? They're always trying to appeal to middle class moms and dads in the suburbs. I get that you want the middle class vote. I get that you want the suburban vote, but you have to be perfectly honest with yourselves, Republicans. The suburban, college educated white woman vote is gone. They have bought the liberal dogma hook, line, and sinker. You have to live with that. You have to understand that you are not going to be able to form the same coalitions that put George Bush in the White House. Those are gone. You are going to have to build from scratch. And the way you start is by going into the hood, going into the trailer park, going into those areas that traditionally vote Democrat, going to the people whose lives suck and explaining to them why the Republican Party can and will make their lives better if they tweak their voting habits. That is what you need to do. You need to go find somebody that speaks Spanish and go to the Hispanic American family. Go find somebody who understands the culture in the hood and go speak to those people. Don't avoid them. You'll see flyers. You'll see political propaganda all for Republicans in the suburbs and in the rural areas. But they're afraid to go put on the bulletproof vest and go in the dangerous area and try to win those people over. Try. What do you have to lose? Are you going to keep having another night like last night? Because guess what? If the Republican Party stays under Ron McDaniel, stays with the bland messaging, and stays afraid to reach out to traditionally Democrat voters whose lives suck, who are downtrodden, and try to really just reach them, then I guarantee you that next November nationally will be a replication of what we just saw last night statewide here in Virginia. The Republican Party, look, you guys have done some great things for America, but at the same time, I mean, you fought for liberty in the Civil War. You elected the president last go around that time before last that had the greatest economy in the history of our nation. The Republican Party's done amazing things, but right now you guys are not cutting the mustard, and you guys need to get the boot out of your ass and do the right thing by the base, by the country, and do a better job. Because if not, what happened last night is going to be the permanent pattern federally. Let that sink in. Have a good day.